Real quick, first, can I get you to subscribe if you've been around here a while, and stick around to the end to see the characters vying for a rework next? Insert joke here about smashing that button like it's a speed bag. You know how there are some things in video games you can look at and just know they could have been handled better? Fighting games have a long history of playable boxers. There's something viscerally satisfying about facing opponents with larger-than-life powers and winning anyway by just punching them over and over. Shame, then, that Smash's resident boxer has always felt off. Little Mac has so much potential, but 2 games of overcommitting to an extreme design with too many huge weak points has left him as an underwhelming caricature that hardly embodies why fans of his games enjoy them so much. But what if we could remake Little Mac to change that, patching up the polarization while adding some new stuff that draws closer inspiration from both Punch-Out and certain other fighting game boxers? It won't be easy, but I think we can make this WVBA champ more fun to play as and against. So without further ado, let's remake it! This part will go fast. Mac's in-game appearance is pretty good already. His character model stays close to his last mainline title, and his animations help convey the personality behind the mostly silent protagonist. Really sells the vibe of a scrappy, undersized fighter taking down more powerful opponents with pure skill and training. One way they could add on? Smash has flirted with having character models change as they take more damage. So far it's been very situational. If Smash 6 goes all in on it, we could have Mac get more and more bruised up as his percent rises. Not that it'd stop him. Mac's alternate costumes are solid as is, with nods to different Punch-Out games, including the original arcade machine. But I think we can keep the spirit of that while adding a little more color variety, like replacing his third alt's gray and black palette with white and red, and some hair dye, in honor of good old Glass Joe. And while the standard wireframe alt is a neat callback, the hoodie plus wireframe one is more expendable. We can swap in a tropical orange getup with pink gloves inspired by King Hippo. Mac's hair stays the same for this one, since we can't make him bald. Here's where we diverge more. Thing is, Little Mac's current setup doesn't work. Being near unstoppable on the ground, yet near punchless in the air, drags the entire design down, and having the best counterplay to him be camping on platforms and refusing to interact isn't fun for anyone. Step 1 toward fixing Little Mac? Adjusting how he fights. Real-life boxing has multiple styles, reflected by other video game boxers, including Punch-Out, where Mac uses his shorter stature and high mobility to stay out of enemy range, poke at them, and work them into positions where they're forced to take risks he can punish. This is the core of the outboxer style, with elements of a counterpuncher. Except in Smash, Mac is more of an infighter instead, forcing his way into close range and overwhelming opponents with attacks that are difficult to contest. It's out of character for him and contributes to his design flaws. We can fix both at the same time by ditching the generic aggressive boxer trappings in favor of how he canonically fights. This also includes careful changes to Mac's underlying stats, improving his ability to fight without overtuning him. His walk speed got a 7% buff, moving him just above Sheik for 5th fastest and letting him make small spacing adjustments more easily. And his initial dash is 2% faster, a very slight yet helpful buff that puts him closer to Mithra's dash speed. But Mac's running speed is actually 10% slower now. Still fast, but merely 9th highest instead of 3rd. His dash and run animations also won't be as low to the ground anymore, so he can't easily run under small projectiles, which fighting game boxers don't usually get to just ignore when approaching. Don't worry, there's other stuff that makes up for it. For example, Little Mac's dash length is currently one of the longest in the game. You can't shield or jump until you've exited your dash and started running, so you're less flexible there. And since Mac's dash speed and run speed are very close, a long dash doesn't really make him any faster. To make him a better outboxer, we'll change his dash length to be shorter than average instead. Lets him reposition with greater ease while having his defensive options sooner. We can also adjust a few mid-air stats, like making his jumps a little less terrible height-wise and slightly buffing his air acceleration. He'll still be clunky in the air and prefer to fight grounded, but now he'll be more in line with the fighting game guest characters and their still useful air games. These adjustments, and others, are reflected in the numerical ratings you see there. True to his underdog nature, Mac's damage output has been toned down a bit to be around the middle. He doesn't have oppressive power in his games, so now he'll win more with finesse and finding combo opportunities, of which he has a few more now. His recovery is also slightly less terrible than before. Still isn't comfortable without his feet planted in the ring, but now he won't be as prone to blowing up the moment he's sent off stage. Still a lightweight though, so he's still vulnerable to ending up there often if you don't play carefully like an outboxer should. Alright, let's get punching. How has Little Mac's moveset changed? Starting off, his basic ground attacks are crucial, and 2 of them haven't changed at all. Mac's lightning fast jab is still there for quick punishes or disruptions, with the option to finish with a single third hit or go into a rapid jab for solid damage. And his down tilt is still a quick low attack that sets up combos with ease. It's also still more punishable than it looks. Short startup yet lengthy end lag is a common thing with fighting game boxers, Mac included. The others got some meaningful adjustments. For example, instead of his forward tilt throwing out both punches automatically, we can make it a 2-input move where the second part is optional. This lets him test the waters with the first punch, then go for the second if the first connected or he needs an aggressive mix-up. We can give Mac's up tilt a slight animation change. Stopping his swing a little sooner than before, he lops off the last 3 active frames behind him. While it eliminates back hit combos and some air coverage, something fighting game boxers usually aren't great at, slightly less end lag makes the front of it more combo friendly. Fair trade. And Mac's training gave him something new for his dash attack. Instead of an awkward hammer punch, now he swings his back fist forcefully at a diagonal angle. While it doesn't cover above him as much, the added force gives it more knockback that makes it better at netting run-up knockouts. These changes carry into Little Mac's smash attacks, which work differently now. No longer do they have several frames of super armor during their startup. They're too easy to fish for as is, and if we want Mac to be an outboxer, these need to be less unga-bunga. Don't worry, they got stuff to compensate. His forward smash now has him pivot on his back foot at the start, then stretch forward to deliver the punch. This shifts his position backward at the beginning, letting you dodge certain moves and punish them hard immediately. He also does a cross punch for all 3 angles now. Losing the up angle uppercut is fine when his up smash is won already. This one also trades super armor for hurtbox shifting. He holds his back arm lower during the startup, letting him slip under higher attacks when you predict one will happen. Forward smash is for horizontal callouts, this one's for vertical. And his down smash got a simpler adjustment. Instead of super armor at the start, we can just make it hit a few frames faster, putting it in line with several other brawler type down smashes without sacrificing its power. Little Mac might not be no air fighter, but he's been training his air game to be more serviceable even when he can't use his legs to put power into his punches. His neutral air had niche use before, but now putting more of his shoulder into it gives the jab 1 frame more startup, but better damage and a couple more active frames. This makes it better for escaping pressure and starting situational combos. You'll see buffs like this elsewhere in Mac's aerials, like figuring out how to make his forward and back airs faster. Training them up has made their startup more in line with some other brawler aerials, and a little extra damage makes them more rewarding for the times he has to fight in the air. His forward air has newfound use for starting low percent combos now, and his back air's knockback is enough to actually edgeguard weaker recoveries. Mac's up air was already fast, but practicing it has made it more workable for juggling people. Leaning back more at the start lets the punch hit further behind him and cover a wider arc. It also got a small damage buff, so it can pressure higher platforms in a pinch. Lastly, Mac's down air is an actual punch now instead of an awkward half palm press. While this adds a little more startup, it now puts the spike hitbox squarely on his glove instead of behind it on his arm. And the spike itself has gone from pathetically weak to still mediocre, but enough to be a threat at high percents. How do you grab someone with boxing gloves on? Little Mac has his ways, using a 2-handed clinch grab that's sometimes allowed in the ring. Another less traditional thing he's trained up, his grabs are now 2 frames faster, making them just kind of slow instead of very slow. His pummel's still the same, a wicked fast body blow great for tacking on as much extra damage as you can. As for his throws, all of them are more or less the same. They still aren't that great. Mac's grab game is still designed for damage and positioning. We can, however, lean into that in a couple ways, mainly adding more damage to his down throw so it hits as hard as it looks, and adjusting his forward throw to deal more knockback at a lower angle, forcing low recoveries that set up ledge pressure and the rare edge guard he can actually go for now. And finally, Little Mac's not much for mouthing off in the ring, but his current taunts, Doc Lewis callouts included, all get the job done. We can add a little more to these too. How about all three of his taunts gain low-powered yet functional hitboxes on the rising punch, arm swing, and rapid strikes respectively. His fists are registered weapons, man, he just can't help it. Now, how can we retool Little Mac's specials to really bring out the best in him? That starts with an updated neutral special that isn't just one type of punch anymore. Now he can get multiple depending on how long he lets it charge. A simple double tap now has him perform a flicker jab, leaning forward and snapping one hand as far as he can for a low commitment strike that doesn't deal much damage but helps open foes up without putting himself in as much of harm's way. Let it charge at least a little though, and now he does a stronger, steadier punch that moves him forward about a dash length, stopping the moment he hits a shield and pulling his arm back, like a hybrid between the old move and a smash attack, while a little less unsafe than the latter. But if you let it charge all the way, you get the same full power straight lunge as before. Casuals love going for it, competitive players like having it available after breaking shields. But there's more going on here, because in place of the old KO punch, Little Mac has something else. Now, he can obtain stars just like in the NES and Wii games. He builds up to them by dealing damage, taking damage to a lesser extent, dodging attacks, and gains the most when hitting opponents during the end lag of their own moves. You can store up to 3 stars at a time. When you have stars, Mac's neutral special changes. Simply tapping B expends 1 star to perform a fast cross punch that combines the flicker jab's flexibility with the straight punch's power. And you can cancel into it out of Mac's tilts and aerials as a combo finisher. But if you have a full set of 3 stars, you can hold B then to charge for a star-powered leaping uppercut that comes close to the old KO punch's power at the start with more vertical rise that doubles as emergency recovery and causes a brief slowdown that has anyone about to get hit by it freak out like they do for Heroes Kamikaze. Now, Mac's neutral special helps define his adjusted fighting style while swapping his old polarizing mechanic for one that's better balanced but still exciting. You could expect to earn 2 to 3 stars per stock normally, depending on how well you play and how long you survive for. Unlike the KO punch, the 3-star punch is not unblockable when grounded, though it does deal heavy shield damage. And while you can cancel into a 3-star punch, its higher startup prevents any true combos, though it's one hell of a mix-up to catch people sleeping. That was complicated. Good thing the next couple aren't. Like his side special, which I left alone, mostly. Jolt Haymaker is a crucial part of Mac's kit that shouldn't go anywhere. Plus, it just feels good to clock people with a flying punch. What we can do is tone down a particularly bad weak point. You know how in Ultimate he can only use it once per airtime and it doesn't get refreshed if he's hit afterward until he lands? How about we change that so it does get restored if he's hit, but using it extra times before landing makes it go a shorter distance instead? This change helps Mac's recovery a little while keeping it as a weak point, and Jolt Haymaker's still as useful on offense as ever, as long as you don't go flying off stage recklessly. What's his other recovery move looking like? Yeah, I kept this one too. It ain't great at actually recovering, but Rising Uppercut is important for Mac's offense and for threatening people trying to platform camp him. And just like Jolt Haymaker, we can give this one some quality of life help by increasing the range Mac can grab the ledge from at the end of it and letting him drift a little to the left or right before entering freefall. He gains a little more flexibility with where he can start it from. This change to Rising Uppercut should, like with Jolt Haymaker, help tone down one aspect of Mac that drags him down a little too much. Smoothing out these excessive extremes should make him more fun to play, more viable, and less reliant on cheesing people to get by. Counterattacks are a staple of boxing, but Mac's down special has always been kind of generic. I say, let's do something about that. On use now, Mac immediately backdashes from his current position while crouching down lower, waiting to choose what to do next. He's temporarily intangible at the start of it, though not for long. The real purpose is backing up to throw off the aim of nearby opponents to make them whiff an attack. Where does the counter part come in? Well, press A or B after the backdash, and Max springs into action again, sliding forward and delivering a punch right in front of the spot he originally stood. If you got someone to whiff the first part, the second lets you punish them immediately. But if not, you don't have to commit to the punch. Sometimes the quick backward movement that doesn't turn you around is useful on its own. This new counter-ish move fits Mac's rediscovered outboxer style, giving him a new movement tool at close and medium ranges with an optional attack afterward. It's not foolproof though. Get too predictable and opponents will start overshooting their attacks to hit the backdash, or bait out the counter and shield or dodge to punish it. You can attempt to use this in the air, but Mac keeps drifting during the shift back and takes longer to attempt the counter, which doesn't hit as hard as when grounded. But you can still use the first part for an emergency movement mix-up that doesn't expend your air dodge. Finally, what'd I do with Little Mac's final smash? Like so much else here, I merely adjusted it to work better than before. The basic setup is the same. Mac hulks out into his multiplayer-only Gigamac form and throws out a starting punch, converting it into a huge combo if it hits anyone. But that extra training also applies to this ambiguously canon alt form. If you have any stars available when you activate the transformation, the final hit gets adjusted to be a Giga-sized star punch, hitting even harder than before. And if you have 3 stars, he does a full wind-up uppercut that can KO from nearly any percent. Even a god looks puny next to that. And there, a revamped version of Little Mac in Smash that makes his weak points less debilitating, tones down the extremes that do more harm than good, and reorients his fighting style to be more in character. Now playing closer to how he actually does in the Punch-Out games, Mac's new movement mix-ups and emergency defenses help him fake opponents out from safety and get them to mess up, just like how he took down so many bigger fighters in the WVBA, all while maintaining enough of his old kit that his current players would, hopefully, still feel right at home. I really hope I handle the boxing motifs right here. I don't have direct experience with the sport myself, so I've been relying on research. Anytime I do that, it never feels like I've done enough. Any Little Mac mains out there, or anyone who plays him but mains someone else nowadays, how'd I do? Did I manage to capture the right vibes, or did I miss the bag completely? If you were impressed, check out the ever-growing list of fighter remakes I've done so far, including a few others whose current designs just don't work as intended. Special thanks to these names here for contributing to this video. Thanks especially to my patrons for being in my corner all this time. And now, it's their turn to enter the ring. Anyone currently backing me on Patreon for as little as $1 per month can vote on which of these 3 Smash veterans gets to go next. Should be a good bout. So, until next time. Oof, I'm beat. Gonna throw in the towel for today.